In 1994, unbeknownst to most of humanity, the universe was dying. The barrier between our reality and the things we imagined was breaking down, endangering all of mankind. The unseen demons of our collective id that exist all around us were starting to manifest themselves. The gods of our dreams walked the earth, and evil men who wanted to bend reality to their whim were becoming our new dark gods. But some who were gifted with powers from this cataclysm fought against the darkness, trying to stop the earth itself from being devoured by what was coming for it. And these heroes band together to fight the villains, knowing that they may not be able to defeat them, but if they can save existence, at least we'll be able to resist the darkness together. That was the concept behind Defiant Comics, a unique line of superhero comics in the 1990s, created by Jim Shooter. He's my favorite writer, and he was coming off his smashing success at Valiant Comics and was hoping to recreate that magic again. And all of this was supposed to accumulate in a crossover called Schism. And it was going to be 4 issues. Each of them would be double-sized for a 160-page epic. Unfortunately, when their big crossover event was supposed to happen, the company went under like so many others in the 90s. 2 of the tie-ins in the regular series made it to print, and they gave us a tantalizing look at what the Schism epic would have been like. Unfortunately, the miniseries itself, that 4-issue, 160-page epic that was going to bring the entire Defiant universe together, was never published, even though practically all of it had been drawn. And all we got to see officially were just teases and advertisements like this. And it went on to become one of comics' great untold stories until now. I'm very pleased to announce that there is a Kickstarter to finally, after all of these decades, release Schism as a 4-issue miniseries. You can get it as a PDF. You can get it as 4 individual print issues. Higher tiers can get you a hardcover collection of the miniseries, and the highest tiers will have a hardcover. They'll have a little sketch by Defiant creator J.J. Jackson. This is a fan project, but they're doing it right. They're bringing in the old creators from Defiant to help complete it, along with new talent to make sure that they're printing it correctly and to color it. And of course, it's going to feature all of the artwork from the original artist who worked on it. And the funny thing is, back then, there was this reputation that Defiant had bad art because they didn't imitate the popular image style of the time. And so that assertion gets more and more absurd as time goes on. So let's talk about some of these bad artists who worked on this. We have David Lapham, who is best known for Stray Bullets, one of the best comic series ever produced. We have J.G. Jones, who has done some excellent major projects for DC and Marvel. Dave Taylor, who's worked on both Batman and Judge Dredd comics. And Charlie Adlard, who I know from doing X-Files, but you probably know him as the co-creator of The Walking Dead. This is a very impressive lineup of talent. The original plot is by Jim Shooter, one of the greatest writers in the history of the industry. We have a script by J.J. Jackson, who, if you go back and look at your old Defiant comics, actually did a lot of writing on those comics, so we know that she's good for it. They're also consulting with Jim Shooter and Pauline Weiss, who was the former senior editor at Defiant. And the goal is going to be to write that script as close as it can be to what it would have been if it had been done in 1994. And to make sure they get the production right, they're consulting with Zach Lynch of Blue Shack Comics, who was one of Jim Shooter's interns at Defiant Comics. And they're using a colorist, Felipe, who's done some work for Blue Shack in the past, and his stuff looks good. And here's a look at some sample pages from each issue, and this is the first issue. And here's a preview of issue 2. And keep in mind, the goal is to make them look as much like they would have back in 94, but they can't take a time machine, so it's going to be a little bit different. But man, I think they look good from what I can see here. I can't blow them up real big, but what I can see looks real good. And here's a closer look at one of the pages. And keep it in mind that there's going to be a lot of dialogue. That's why there's so much space in some of these images, right? They haven't added in the dialogue, but man, it looks very, very nice. And I'm looking forward to finally reading this after all these years. And it's hard to say until you read it, but if Shooter is true to form here, this should be as easy to pick up for new readers as it is for old ones, because when he did Unity, the whole point of that was to grab people's attention and get new readers into the Valiant universe, and it worked. And I suspect that the goal of Schism is the exact same thing, that it will be a good jumping on point for new readers as well. But I just want to briefly touch on some of the titles that led up to this miniseries. There's Warriors of Plasm, which is about this organic world that goes out and conquers other worlds and devours every living thing on it in order to feed itself. And this is particularly problematic with dimensional barriers breaking down and the people of Plasm discovering a little planet called Earth. And then there's Dark Dominion, which is about this dimension that exists all around us, but is just outside of our ability to see and perceive. And in it, our fears manifest themselves as demons that feed off of us. And we start seeing them gain the ability to manifest themselves in our reality. Good Guys deals with the fact that the disturbance in reality is causing people's dreams to become real. And so there's a bunch of kids who are comic book fans, and they find themselves with powers, and they decide to become good guys. But of course, there's also a lot of people who decide to use their newfound powers to do some bad stuff, and fight scenes ensue. War Dancer is about an ancient god created by our collective consciousness who comes to Earth, the world of the dreamers, and decides that reality is too messed up to save, and decides that it's just better to wipe the whole thing out. This brings him into conflict with Charles Smith, also known as Charlemagne, who lost his brother in Vietnam, and his wish was that he would become the protector of life and prevent other people from dying. And War Dancer challenges him to a battle to decide the fate of reality. Should we save it or should we destroy it? And so their final confrontation coincides with Schism. There's also a couple of villains in Dark Dominion who have already gained mastery over the demons in the quantum realm who are looking to use the events of Schism in order to become God. And most notably is Charles Maul, also known as Chasm, who's kind of the big bad of the Defiant universe. And there could be some other characters that pop in there, like Shooter from Dogs of War, which is an excellent series about a street-level vigilante. But like I said, I think they'll do their best to orient you. But if you do want to pick up the old Defiant stuff, feel free. It's cheap and it's good stuff. I'll probably do a video guide to the different titles that came out at some point. The Kickstarter is headed by Jake Weaver, and this is his first Kickstarter, and he's a fan. He also has a podcast, Midnight on Earth, and it's not a comics podcast, but he has had Jim Shooter on a couple times. That's how big of a Defiant fan he is. The episodes are excellent. He even reunited Jim Shooter on air with his former intern, Zach, after many years, which was kind of awesome. And tracking down all the pages and restoring them has been an epic quest for Jake. And he's had help from guys on the Defiant Comic Fans group on Facebook to help get this together. And this has been a project that they've been working on for a while. They're excited, and I messaged JJ on Facebook, and she said she was excited to be finishing the miniseries and that her hoarding finally paid off. It is going to be an expensive Kickstarter. It's $75 for the miniseries as PDFs and $79 for the print issues, and it goes up from there for the hardcovers. The goal is to reach $61,200 before March 2nd, which is really high for a Kickstarter like this. When asked why it was so high, I was told that it was going to go to writing, editing, coloring, reconstruction, printing, and shipping. With Kickstarter, you're only charged if a Kickstarter meets its funding goal, so you don't have to worry about losing any money, but if it doesn't meet that goal, then the project is canceled, and that would suck. And so I'd estimate it's going to take more than 700 backers to get this thing funded, and so that's going to take a bit of work. So please, if you know anybody who might be interested in this, any fan of Defiant Comics, any fan of 90s comics, any fan of comics and pop culture and just good stories in general, please let them know about this. Let's get this thing done. All right, that's it. Like and subscribe for more videos, And until next time, be careful what you dream. See ya.